Servus Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. Recently, Angela Merkel, together with the mainstream media, were putting out very misleading and absolutely wrong statements about the spreading of the China bug among the German population. They said that by Christmas we will have 20,000 or even more precisely 19,200 new infections each day. That is what Angela Merkel said, and she said, "I am a physicist, I know how exponential growth works, and this is why we can easily predict that." I will show you in detail in this video why this is absolutely misleading, and I will show you also in detail what she did in order to arrive at these very misleading and outrageous claims. I want to make very clear here that nobody knows. Angela Merkel doesn't know, the scientists don't know, and also I don't know what the infection rate will be around Christmas. We don't know. What I can tell you for sure, however, is that she misread the data that she used for her extrapolation, and that the single exponential growth over a course of 6 months is absolutely ridiculous, and I will show you that in this video. And also I will explain to you the German term Milchmädchenrechnung, milk girl calculation, and what it means, and why I think that Angela Merkel is a little milk girl who made a Milchmädchenrechnung. Before we start, however, I want to thank again my supporters and my subscribers. If you like this material, spread it, like, share and subscribe, and leave a comment down below. If you want to support my work, you can do so directly via PayPal or via Patreon or Subscribestar. Let's get into the matter now. So Angela Merkel said that in the end of June we had 300 cases a day, and now, meaning when she made that statement, that was the end of September, we have 2,000 every day. And then she said that means that in the course of roughly 3 months it doubled 3 times. And if it doubles again 3 times in the course of the coming 3 months, then at Christmas time we will have 19,200 cases a day. Now, if you want to be generous here, you could say that she just wanted to make a simple example so that people can understand what exponential growth means, but she also must know that all the mainstream media will of course amplify her message, she being the Chancellor of Germany, and also her claiming to be a physicist and knowing about science. And when she says that she knows how the growth mode will be, meaning single exponential, she is claiming for herself a predictive power that she just doesn't possess. And that is highly misleading, especially for lay people who don't know about the underlying science. So let's start with the numerical aspects and with the data, with the extrapolation or with the basis for the extrapolation that she used. It sounds also straightforward. If you have 300 and you double it 3 times, you go to 600, 1,200, 2,400, you're at around 2,000. Okay. Then if you double that another 3 times, you get to 4,800, 9,600, and then finally 19,200. Yeah, very nice. The problem here is the underlying data first and foremost. Did we really have 300 at the end of June? And do we really have 2,400 at the end of September? Let's look at the data. So we see that in the last days of June, the average signal was more around 500, and there was a little dip, 2 days where it was around 200 or 300, and that is the little dip that she picked. This is an artifact, and this is an outlier that she picked. And now let's look at the end of September. There is another outlier that is a top value, and that is actually around 2,000. But the average here, let's take a weekly average, that is not at all at 2,000. It's below 2,000. And when you see that in those 3 months the positive tests went up from 500 to 1008 or 700 maybe, then this doesn't mean that it doubled 3 times whatsoever. She used a very manipulative trick here, and that is that the data that you see in many countries, not only in Germany, is modulated with an artifact from the weekend. You see, there are always 2 days that are lower than the other days, and that is Saturday and Sunday, because the numbers are not really reported so well on the weekend. There is a bunching effect that Monday and Friday are generally the highest days, and the middle of the week is a little lower, but the weekend is significantly lower. What you should do, you should use a 7-day moving average, and then you don't go from 300 to 2000, but you go more from 500 to 1800. And then this doubling period is much larger. What should also be noted is that during these 3 months, we went from 50,000 tests a week to almost 1.2 million tests a week. So actually, one would have to cut this number in half, because it scales with the amounts of tests that you do, of course, as I always keep repeating on my channel. So this 3 times doubling in 3 months is absolute bogus. It's highly manipulative, and she must have known that. So once again, a Sunday value to get low numbers in early times, a Friday value to get the highest possible number at later times, and then just omitting the fact that the number of tests more than doubled in the meantime. Absolutely ridiculous. And then she does the worst possible thing. She uses this faulty, overly primitive single exponential model and extrapolates it 3 months into the future without even thinking about it. Bear in mind, during all this time, she claimed the authority of a PhD in physics, and that is why she can do that. So here you could say now, yeah, okay, she just wanted to make an example. It doesn't really matter if it's really like this or like that. So maybe it's just 10,000 and not 19,000, what have you. But it gets even worse. This single exponential is just not true. If you want to test if something grows exponentially, you can just plot the logarithm of that curve and then see, because the human eye can see that really well, if something is following a straight line. And if the logarithm grows like a straight line, then the original quantity grows exponentially. And what we see here, we see piecewise exponentials that, I think there are so many in here, like 4 or 5. So to claim that there is just a single exponential growth is completely insane. And it gets even worse than that. Earlier this year, I introduced to you not only exponential growth, but right afterwards, what actually happens here. It is called the logistic function, and check out my video if you're interested in that. I tell you in that video in detail what the underlying differential equation for the logistic function is and why a spread of a disease is described by the logistic function and not by the exponential function. Just to give you the basic facts here, a logistic function looks like it grows exponentially in the early stages. Then in the middle there is a seemingly linear progression stage, and in the end the growth is decelerating and it saturates towards a stable, constant plateau value. And this is when the whole thing is over then. And when you look at the data from the spring, from the first wave in Italy and Spain and Germany, oh, what a surprise! It looks exactly like a logistic function. Because that is what happens. There are saturation effects, there are self-limiting effects, because we live in a finite society, in a finite system. We don't have an infinite amount of people that meet with infinite people every day. And our society is not that well mixed also. People don't meet everybody else in Germany on any given day, so this exponential model is completely ridiculous. After a while, it saturates And in those European countries, you see that the exponential-like phase was 1 month, the linear progression phase was another month, and within the third month, the saturation stage has been reached already. I did some research into other countries. Colombia comes to mind, for example, where this exponential-like growth lasts longer, like 3 months, but I've never seen that it lasts for 6 consecutive months. I just haven't seen that yet. So this assumption is insane. But of course, the German mainstream media is applauding now to the great leader and praising her that, exponential growth is so counterintuitive for many of these plebs who can only think linearly. And we have this epidemiological model that describes that so well. Yeah, well, why doesn't it fit to the actual data then? Why is nobody telling the people that it is a logistics function and not a single exponential growth here in every country? And yes, in some countries the data is all over the place because they don't have consistency in testing maybe, or they have localized regional outbreaks here and there. But as I said, in the large European countries in the spring, it was following nicely this logistic function, and there is no reason to believe right now that it will be anything but this now also. But maybe when you tell people that there are intrinsic effects, intrinsic saturation effects to this phenomenon, maybe it doesn't lend itself so well to scaring people. I think an open-ended, ever-continuing exponential growth that they always show in the media is just scaring people much better, because it looks like that it's gonna get bigger and bigger and it never stops. In reality, these things are self-stopping, as can be seen in the data and as can be learned very easily from basic considerations when you look at the differential equations, at the underlying mechanism of the spread of this thing. But once again, I don't know how long this exponential-like phase will last. Nobody knows that, but at least I can tell you that an always continuing exponential growth is not what happens in the real world. It normally follows this logistic function. It is a very important, very handy function to know about, because many things, when you look at it in a more realistic model, they have saturating effects, self-stopping behavior. Something grows initially, but then it stagnates and it saturates. That is, in many processes in the world, this is what we see. And also the spreading of a disease is an example for that. And it also doesn't saturate or stop when everybody is infected, because as I said, not everybody is in contact with everybody else. And we have experience now from other countries, from many countries from earlier this year, where we see that not everybody gets infected. There is no reason to assume that. This is just fear-mongering. But once again, nobody really knows. It might be that we get to 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, I don't know. Or maybe it stops next week. Who knows? So with this video, I wanted to show you how Angela Merkel, together with the mainstream media, are trying to make people afraid by using shaky extrapolations that are based on manipulating the data using a weekly artifact. That means that on the weekend you just have less reported positive tests than during the week, and she was using that in order to conjure up a third doubling in the last 3 months that just didn't exist, and that she shamelessly extrapolated another 3 months into the future. And this is what we call in Germany a Milchmädchenrechnung, and I want to explain in the end now what that really means. So I already said in the beginning, it literally means milk girl calculation or milkmaid calculation. So it would mean it is a calculation, an estimation that is done by a person who has not yet and maybe never will come to experience or enjoy higher education. So it means that the math is not technically wrong. It's not like 2 + 2 = 5 because someone is just too dumb to do math. No, it means that it is technically correct math, but it is naive, it is simplistic, it is based on assumptions that are too coarse and too simplistic, and it doesn't reflect reality. It is mathematically correct, but it has nothing to do with what is actually going on. It is oversimplifying matters to the point where it is just absolutely wrong and not practically usable in any way. And in my opinion, this is a classical example where a simple single exponential growth that middle school students can understand is used in order to extrapolate something that in reality is not following a single exponential at all. You can see that in all the countries all around the world. It is either chaotic and all over the place, or it has different waves, or follows this classical logistic function like it did in the countries that compare to Germany, and Germany also, like Spain, Italy, and Germany. This is where it followed really, really well, this logistic function, and it is also worthwhile to understand what a logistic function is and what the underlying differential equation looks like and why it grows the way it grows then, and why it saturates inevitably. Alright, so I hope you enjoy this today. Check out my older videos on exponential growth and the logistic function if you have some interest in that. Catch you guys again later. Servus, Kameraden.